Hello, hello. So I don't have long here. I just have about half an hour or so. So I'm just gonna cover some basics here on forest and getting a more realistic grass and getting a more realistic scene. So this is typically what you see when you have forest. You have this, and to be honest, it's not that great. It's not the best scene not the best render you can get. So that's all we're going to be looking at. It's just how to improve that. Now all I've done is I've just press W so I can select. I've just put a plane in, and I'm actually just going to extend this out a little, other way, just so we get those edges, so we don't have these little edges here. And for now, later on I'll put these back in, but I'm just going to get rid of these segments just so you can more clearly see what's happening. Now all I've done is I've just come along, and if I come out of isolation mode, I'm just going to select the forest here, and I'm just going to delete that. And what I'm going to do is click on forest up here and just select this, and then come in here into the modifier map tab, and we're just going to come along and click on library and just get common grass or large here. And then depending on your units, you might have to rescale this, so just say yes, rescale that. And there's various objects, so it's going to ask on each object it's bringing in. So when that's done, you're going to get your forest. Now where do we take it from here, right? That's the question. How do you get this so this starts to look like something that you want it to look like, so this looks real? And just make sure I have it selected. And with anything you're doing in 3D, what you're going to be doing is you're going to find that you're going to need to add in extra amounts of detail in order to get something looking real. Okay, so if we have a look at this forest and see how it is, I'm just going to pull this over so we get 3 columns here. We've got this geometry, right? And this geometry is 3 clumps of grass, which is fine. And if you unhide all and unfreeze all, yes. Unfreeze all, yes. And these are just put in. These are the clumps of grass that you're looking at. This is what's in forest right now. That's what it's using. And I'm just going to pull these over here just so we can look at them. Just get rid of the grid, press G and Z to zoom in, and press F3. Alright, so this is what we're looking at, right? Now, you have to ask yourself, how, they've done a good job here creating this, but is this what grass looks like? And how much variation is there on this grass? So if we open up the material editor and just have a look at this, it's going to delete this view, get a new view, and bring in the material get from selected. Alright, so this is the material that we're dealing with. This is the corona material. Now when we look at this, the first thing which we're going to have to look at is, hang on, if you're using V-Ray or Corona, it's going to be pretty much the same. So first of all, this bitmap which comes in here, this should not be spherical. This is coming in, all of this is weird. Okay, I think it's because I put in a it's because I put in a HDRI earlier and had it all on spherical. So we probably want this. I'm just going to flip these all over quickly. Let's make it so we can see these. Show shaded material in viewport. Just so we can see what we're doing. Alright. So if you have this, I'm not used to this being wrong. I'm used to this being right all the time. But here you've got a problem because this should not be this dark, right? So you come in here and you can go add gamma to input and it'll lighten it up and that'll give you the correct color for the corona normals. And it's the same with V-Ray. V-Ray you can also just come in here, click on this, and in this bitmap loader you can just click override 1 and that will also give you the correct color. So that's another way of doing it. Change these quickly. This is not what I intended to show you. All right, but let's talk about maps in general. Because if you look at this map here, right, where's view image, you see how you get this lightness and a darkness, and this is all caused by shadow, right? So this is not really a great map to use, but no one's too bothered because you're probably not going to notice it because it's so small. But it's the same for all of these. Like, look, I mean, this is just the same map color corrected, right? But you want to really be having something which doesn't look like light has already hit it. Does that make sense? Like, you want to, because you're going to be hitting it with light in your scene. So there's not really a reason to have something looking like light has hit it already. See if there's any more of these. Alright, I think that's all corrected. So again, the problem here with forest is that what you've got is you've got no variation. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is assign a texture to this plane. I'm just going to press M to open material editor, and I'm just going to grab a corona material. I'm on maps, aren't I? Corona material, just assign this, and then I need to get into my maps. And let's just get environment, and let's take a look at the ground. So sorry, I'll bring this over so you can see what I'm doing. Right, so this is ground here. I'm just going to drop this in and put this straight here into diffuse. And I'm going to make this tiling. We can just set this to 2. Maybe a bit higher. Let's do it at 4. And what we've got now is, you know, in my mind, this looks a bit bright. That's a bit, I don't really want ground color looking that bright. So to darken it, I'm just going to come along and grab a that's the color correction. Here we go, put that on there, and we're going to use this and just use this to darken it. So just click on advanced and lower this gamma. Try about 0.7, and now it's a bit oversaturated, which you'll find as you lower this. Like, look, if I come down to 0.4, it'll get even more saturated. See, somehow the color gets increased. So when you lower this and play with this, you often have to play with the saturation as well. So we're just going to lower that partly, and that'll be okay because no one's really going to see through very much through the grass to the ground, but it's just for little gaps and so on. So where those occur, you can see them. Now remember, let's look at the render. So this is the render that we're looking at. And even though there seems to be a little bit of variation here in the grass, like this is lighter, this is darker, it's not the best. There's not a lot of variation going on here. And you know, it's always a good idea. It's always a good idea to Google and see what you're dealing with. So let's look at grass. And let's look at images. You know, like, what is it you're trying to create? And this is kind of springtime, right? So this isn't particularly real either. And we need something, let's do meadow or lawn. I could just go outside and take some photos. But here you'll see there's a lot of different variation here in color. You see this is quite dark here, this is quite light here, you've got this bit of earth showing through here. So, you know, whenever you look at an actual ground, actual grass, you're going to see a lot of different colors. And so you need to be adding these in. You know, anything you do in 3ds Max, the problem is that you're adding in only one set of variation. Like, you know, if I took a look at this ground, this is just one color. So you have to add in variation in order to get reality. So and look at the height of this. Everything, you know, there's a slight difference, but it's pretty much all the same. So you always want to be working on that. Now I'm going to press H and select my forest. And you see I made this wider, and it doesn't automatically move the forest out to cover the wider space. So you have to just refresh that if you want it to do it. Distribution. I forget where the refresh button is, but it's here somewhere and I'll come across it. Alright. Oh, here you go, surface area. So now it's just refreshed. Okay. So it all comes down to colors, right? It comes down to all of these different, understanding these different options that you have here. So let's see, it says 725 items in the object. I don't want to custom edit. This allows you to move the items around. Let's just go to material. Okay. And let's have a look. Here we've got forest color in there. We're going to get color from gradient, random strength. Let's put this up to 10 to 100. And you can immediately get an idea of color it's causing here and changes it's causing. So if we do a quick render of this, actually I'm just going to come in and do the interactive rendering. And so we just want to be looking here at, you know, how much of an effect is our change having. And although there's some, it doesn't appear to be very much. And we can turn this off and just see if there's a difference. Let's push this up and see what happens. See, not a lot, so we're gonna turn that off again. Alright, I'll show you the way I like to do it. I'm always trying to do it using the options here, which don't always work. But what does work is using a noise map. And there's various ways to use a noise map with forest. So we can come in and put it straight into here. And then you're going to have to change the size. This is just to bypass this so we can see easily what's happening. So let's try 10,000. Let's try bringing the noise threshold, the low down up to 0.5 and the high down to 0.6. And let's lower this down to 1000. There we go. Now we're getting some variation. So let's try this at 2000. No, 1500. Alright. And unfortunately you have to be rendering or do a test render to see this. You'll see, like, if I close this and move this, you can't see it here in the scene, right? So the only way to see it is to do your test render. So I'm just going to open this back up again, and we can see what's happening here. So what we want to do is use this map to get change happening. And there's several ways to do this. You can come in here and do get color from map and plug this straight in. Sorry, instance. And let's just push this all the way up, make sure it's doing what we want it to do, so I'm not sure it is. Nope, there's no change here happening. Okay, so we're just going to put this back to 0 and clear this. Oh, let's try this again. Sorry, it was on random textures. Sorry, random values. So we just put that in there. And let's try this at 100. No. And if we click optimize materials, render engine. Okay, we're not going to do that. We're just going to clear this out. Put this back to 0, and we're going to do it another way. You know, if this doesn't work, which sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I think it works better with V-Ray than Corona, but maybe I'm mistaken on that. There's other ways of adding this, and the other way is to do like a layered material here. So, you know, we already have this multi-sub-object material here. We can also use a mix map, for example. Let's just try this color tint. And get color from map. As texture on surface. This is working, right? But again, it's just making it gray. So that's not what we want. We want to see that variation we had before. So, alright, so let's just see. If I put it here, does that change it? Not really. But it does change it in the diffuse. So what we're going to do is take this, and we're just going to go mix. Keep it simple. Put a mix map here, make that color 1, and we're going to make this color 2. And what we're going to do is just say like mix them out just to show we're making a difference. Put this up at 100, and you see the colors here coming through. So what we can do is lower this down to like 50, and we get color changes here, but obviously it's just black and white, which is not what we want. So we're just going to take some greens and take this other green and make this yellowish green. Let's make this a little bit less saturated. And let's make this a little bit more yellow. Alright. So we've got some variation going on, and we can adjust it, you know, the quantity, the amount. But we've got, the main point was just to get some color going on there, something happening. Now, I like to do several layers of this, to be honest. So let's see, if I just take this noise again, I'm going to make this black and white just so we can see what we're doing again. And just put this straight here into diffuse. Right, so that's what we were doing. And I'm going to try and make this a little bit bigger. Actually, first of all, let's turn on fractal, just so it's not so smooth on the edges. And I need more of this darkness in there, so let's turn this low down to 0.4 and the high to 0.5. Yeah, I did the opposite to what I wanted, 0.6, 0.59. That's better. And then this size is too low, right? But 2000, it just disappeared, didn't it? That's weird. So let's try 1600. Or maybe even 3000. Maybe it comes back. No. Let's try 19. Let's try 18. And 7. Okay. So it seems that, like, if I come up to 18, 17, wasn't it? You see, we'd only get these tiny little amounts here showing, right? Which is weird. It's just a glitch in this map. But it makes it seem that if I bring this low down to 0.5, we should get more. And this high, make this 0.51. Should get more as well. And then if I bring this up to 1900, yeah, I thought it would disappear. So make this 0.4 and make this 0.41. Now this is not the way it should work at all. I don't know why it is. And no, it's not really getting much bigger than noise. Let's do 2000. Let's do 2, 5. I expect it to go dark again. It's gone light. So let's just flip the other way. That's weird. Okay, 0.5, 0.6. Alright, so we're just playing with this just so we can see the changes that we're making. 3.5 and 0.4. No points. Let's try 0.4. 0.41. Alright, well it doesn't actually change the size very much, to be honest, which is weird. I should have, but still. So we've got this variation happening, and I'm just going to copy these colors over, copy, chuck it in there, paste, copy, paste, and then take this, put it into here, and put this into there. So we've got some variation, and we might not like these colors so much. Let's just try changing this a bit greener. Alright, but we have those colors there, and we can desaturate these all a bit as well. Let's just desaturate everything a bit. Okay. Now, there's various different actions you can do in order to increase this realism. So the first one we've done is we've just added in some extra details on the material, and we can go in and do that again and again, right? Like, there's no reason not to have another mix. You know, take this again, make this black and white. And in this case we're just going to make a couple of small highlight changes, right? So we put that in, and let's bring this to, you know, we just want a few areas being white, so we're going to push this low up to 0.6. Let's try 0.7. Let's try changing this size. Okay, let's try dropping this down. Didn't work. 0.5. 0.3. 0.4. 0.35. It's going to come up higher, isn't it? 0.5. And this needs to be 0.45. Let's try that. Okay. So we've just got a few areas here that are white, right? Which is what we want. And if I bring this up to 0.49, no, 0.45. And this 4.6. Okay, then we get really white here. And so we can take this, you see, and we can just do another mix map, for example. I mean, you can also use a composite instead of mix, right? So, which, to be honest, I'm more inclined to use composites than mixes. You just take this, add in an extra layer. I'm not going to put that on there yet. Actually, I will, just so you can see. Put that in there, diffuse. And then what we want to do is get this color in there. So this is going to come in as layer 2. And layer 2 we can just stick on straight overlay. So this just adds that color on top of, you know, and you can see the difference if I come in here and just make it so you can't see it. You see, like, there's a whole bunch of variation here that just disappears. Put it back on again. And then I need to add in an extra layer. And we're going to take this and put this into layer 3. And now we can see what that's doing. And here I can just put this onto screen. So just the lightness comes through. Where are we? Screen. And now there's also no reason to have so much lightness. You know, that white is very harsh. Or we could also just take that white and make it yellow. So we just added in extra detail here, you see. And so it's starting to look good. It's starting to come together, and we're starting to get a bunch of variation coming in. And this is sort of what you want to be doing with all of your materials, is just you're always adding in extra details, adding in extra color, adding in extra something, you know. Alright. Now, we also, because this is forest, we have a bunch of different options here that we can do. So, I'm just going to take this and reduce this in size. Alright. So let's take a look. We've got areas, which is just the surface area. We don't need to change that. I mean, we might if we only wanted it in certain areas, but for now this is fine. And then I'm just going through this. It's been a little while since I've used this. Now distribution is important, and distribution can play a big role in this. So right now it's full, which just means there's just grass everywhere. And you've got these various ones with patches. And they've got various different patches, you see. But you see, you just get these clumps, which are not really what you want either, right? This you can't see because we're not far enough away. So let's just see dense. And then what you have to do is you have to then adjust this density, right? So let's just make it bigger, and that happens, and we make it smaller, and that happens. So, you know, how small do you want it? We can try this. You get these little patches of nothingness there, which is fine. Diversity, here we go. Random. don't think that's going to work. No. You can turn on clusters. Again, we don't need that. Collisions, no. What we do want is we want size. So we've got areas, distribution, items, editor. Let's try this. Where are you? Surfaces. Scale fall off. Scale to fit slope, no. What I need is I need this to be able to change this random size, so maybe it's over here, isn't it? God damn, it's been a while. Here we go, scale 100. Alright, so if I change this, and this is per this item, right? So this is just for this, and there's 3 of them in here. But if I come down to 10%, and then, what are we doing? Global scale 10, let's try. There we go. Alright. Global scale, where are you? So you can play around and this adjusts this. There's 2 ways of adjusting this size, right? One is here and the other one is here we go. Transform. It's like so obvious. It's just been so long since I've used it. Alright, so here we've got this is for tilting it, and this is why you have, like, if I zoom in, I'm just going to go into 2D pan zoom mode and zoom in a bit here on the grass. See, it's like going at different angles and so on, and that's partly because of this, but it's fine, it looks okay. This is rotation, this is enabled, so it's just randomly rotated. And then this is the scale, and the scale is set to 100 and 110. Now, really, this grass is a bit too thick. It's like uncut lawn, you know? Which is fine in some places, and in other places not so fine. So if we change the scale, we probably want this to be much smaller. And this has max 110. Let's try 60. And we're going to come down on this minimum scale down to 30 or even 10. Alright. Let's try 20 instead. And now you can see that you've got really, really patchy here. So we need to get rid of a lot of that patchiness. And to do that, we have to come back up to, where are you? Distribution. And lower this units. Let's try a small amount. Try a larger amount. And you start to get an idea, like, you know, it's got little bits of ground here showing through. Do you want that? Do you want to go even lower? I think sometimes there's a mix of both. Alright, well I'll show you another thing which I do often. Let's come back up here to 8. Alright, so everything here is circles, right? These are all circles, they're all the original size, the original items. So I'm just going to go top view, and it's these, right? And we know these are what we're seeing. Okay, Z and then tilt. Now the problem is they are all circles, and the reason that's a problem is because, like you saw, you just get lots and lots of circles appearing on your map as soon as you go down further or up further. So the way you can handle this is you can come in and edit these. You come into the editable mesh, you come into this, element mode, and you just select some random elements and just turn off snaps if you have snap on, because it's just going to snap randomly to horrible places. So turn that off, and you can just come in and select and just move these around, right? Don't worry too much about how they move. All you want is or even holes, because you're going to have them overlapping each other, right? But all you want is you want to just get rid of the roundness, the perfect geometry. You want this to look wrong and not the way it does right now. So we just take this and play around a bit. And if you have more time, you can always do this more carefully. I'm just moving these around just to move something, And you can come in and do the same with all of these. So just moving this just to add some randomization. Actually, let's grab some more here. And you can also just take some at the edge, you don't have to you can also just press E and rotate them, You can pull some back into gaps. If you've made gaps which you think are too big in the middle, you can always just pull some stuff back in. Just press 5, element mode, and we just come along and just pull these around. And all you're trying to do here is just make it so, they don't look like balls when you start seeing Earth. And the reason for it is if you go out and look at the lawn around you, you'll often see bits of ground showing through. So, we want that variation. We want to be seeing a few little patches of ground, and we want to be seeing some grass. But when you only see grass or only see ground, it just looks slightly wrong, The lawn's a little bit too plush, too perfect, and you don't really want it to be looking too perfect at all. Okay, and you can also scale these, yeah? Like I've just moved them to the edge, but you can also just scale them in a bit if you want. But I don't think that's necessary. But it's up to you though, right? Okay. Okay. Just gotta align it with the bottom so it's not going through the grass. Alright, so this is our lawn now. And if we just do this interactive rendering again, that's what it looked like before. Is it, or is this what it's just done now? No, this is a new one, right? Alright, so we've got, now you can see the variation, you can see the changes. It doesn't look like perfect cylinders anymore, or sorry, circles. But we can always, add in more randomization. So I think we'll just do that, just quickly, just so we get something that we like, So and you can always even stick some bits going off, so you get an extra little patch out on the side or something. Bring this in. Thing is, because it's still basically round, right? That's all. I'm just trying to change this up and get some other sort of shape going on. which is interesting because if you look at the original videos on how to create grass, this is what they all did, right? They all came along and were like, make round patches and then distribute them just exactly the way Forest Pack Pro has done. So all they've done is they've just copied other known people who have said, look, this is the best way to do it, and they've done it. And now though, as soon as you try to enter in some randomity with circles, you just get these weird circles that don't match. So we can just do something like this. Alright, we just do something like that, just so they're even more weird and random. And then come back in and let's just do that interactive rendering again. And what we'll do is we're going to adjust the scale here, just so we get more grass coming through. This is just so we can see the shapes. Okay, so if we take a look at, what are we doing here? I've got this still selected, not the forest. Just press H. Let's get the forest selected. Alright, so this is at 1200. Let's try 12,000. Let's try 9,000. And we're going to drop this down. Let's try 7. Let's try 5. Okay, I kind of like that. You get these little patches here, you can see, you know, and if I come in on 2D pan zoom mode and come in here, you know, you've got these little patches here of earth. And if I take a look at this, you know, the color here is a bit wrong. And for whatever reason, there's very little shadow coming through. So what we're going to do, we're just going to adjust this material slightly. Here it is. Just press C, line this up. And just double click on this guy. Bring this in so you can see. There we go. And what I want to do is, actually I'm not happy with the scale of this, so let's adjust the scale first. Let's try 8 and 8. Alright, that's better. And then here, I just want to darken it slightly. Let's try 0.5. And let's just desaturate it a little bit more. Maybe that's a bit too dark. Here we go. Alright. So just come out of 2D pan zoom mode. Okay, so this is a bunch of variation that we've added, right? And if you come back, if we go back to the forest, I mean, let's take a look at this, the height here that we were looking at before, right? I'll just press H. For some reason I can't select it, but I can select it here. And then click select, select objects. Here we go. And then just so you can see, bring this over. Okay. Distribution, items, surfaces, transform. Alright, here we go. So here we've got, let's just take a look at the size. And you see you can put a map in here as well, right? So let's have a look at the size. And this map is really kind of key, right? If I put this up at 200, you should see some of it just jumps up. Yeah, it jumps up a lot. So if we put in a map, you can just say yes. And the map's going to go in here, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to use another noise map. And let's just assign this map. Okay, and then notice that there's also this probability curve, which is kind of cool as well. So we've got kind of a lot going on here. That's how it's rendering. And this is the noise map that we're dealing with. Okay. And I want to push this black and this white closer together. So let's try 0.6 and 0.5. And you can instantly see the change here that's occurring because of this, right? And we can come up a bit higher in the scale. And then you start getting these swaths of different sizes, right? And obviously here it's a little bit too empty. And here it's alright. So in order to handle that, we can come up here and adjust either... you can either adjust the scale of the item, you know, like here we can adjust the scale, or you can adjust the density of the distribution map. Here, see if I bring this down to 2000, but obviously realize every time I bring this down, I'm increasing the number of forest items in the scene a lot, right? So I bring this down, for example, we get a lot more grass coming through. But here, this is really, really, really thick with grass. It's going to kind of look okay, but it's really thick. So we don't really want that, right? I don't want to have so much grass in there that it's a struggle for the computer to render it. So I'd rather keep this a little bit higher and adjust, instead of adjusting distribution, adjust this. Like, let's push this up to 40. And let's push this up to 80. And you still get variation then in the grass height, you see. And if you want, what you can do is you can come in here as well and you can click on fractal. And then you can come along and you've got levels here which are set to 3, right? And you can see here how crazy these items are here. So we can set this up to, let's try 6, and it's just going to add in more layers on top, right? And so we end up getting this. And so now we've added in a lot of different color into the scene, and we're also adding in this different height. Now I do have a slight problem, which is simply that this height amount I feel is too much. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along and I'm going to take this noise and just pull it back here, and I'm going to make this a different size, and I'm going to change this size down to 1000. Let's see, 1000. And let's see, if I plug this into the black color, what do we get? We get that, and if I plug it into the white color, it's just going to put this where the white is instead. We get this. So you can go again and again and just put more and more noise maps on top of each other in order to get more and more variation going on here. So let's just see, we've got this. I think I'm going to adjust this height. Let's bring this up to 60. And so we get that variation in height, but it's not so obvious, right? And that's kind of what you're going for most of the time. Sometimes you really want to have it obvious, you really want to see that variation, but oftentimes you just want to have the variation going, and but you don't want to be noticing, you don't want your eye to be drawn to it to show, you know, all of the differences that are going on. So this is grass. This is really how I go around creating variation in grass in 3ds Max and using Corona. And in the next one, I'll take this same scene and I'm going to drop in some trees in the background and show how I use it to create variation in trees and shrubs and get a realistic background here. And then we'll add in some extra flowers and so on and so forth here as well. Alright, but that's it for now. Thanks a lot, guys. See you around.